Dear Mr. Jack, please can I see my dad? I just want to play today. Maybe a jigsaw. Or maybe watch TV. I was in the park last week and I saw other boys with their dads. But my dad just wants to stay with you. I don't know why. I think you smell really bad. My mom misses him too. Even though they don't live together anymore. She tells me it's not his fault. But I can't understand why I'm always on my own. You seem to make him very angry, which makes me scared. I want to help him. I don't know what to do. You made him lose his job and still take all his money. Sometimes there is no food in the house and I'm hungry. Just empty bottles belonging to you. Mr. Jack, I don't like when you make my dad cry. I can hear him behind the door. Please unlock the door and let me play with him. I miss him so much. Everyone does. I had a nightmare a few nights ago and found my dad asleep on the floor. I couldn't wake him up. I was scared he was dead. I remember the time I had a toothache and we couldn't go to the dentist because he was with you. Because of you. I am worried I will never see my dad again. Please, Mr. Jack. Please let my dad play today.
I have a tattooed on my back. It says, "The devil and God are raging inside me." And it's in my head. That's what was always going on. My anxiety, that's what I call it. Constant all the time. And so, you know,
the demons. Easy to turn it on and off though, in your mind?
Yeah. So my first instrument was oboe. And, you know, as I was classically trained, I learned how to read music and read notes. And the best part about playing oboe is where you get to sit. You sit in the center because you're the instrument that tunes the rest of the symphony. And so I got to sit dead center with the strings off to this side, violins here, violas going back that way, and, you know, flutes and woodwinds off this way, percussion behind, and the director in front of me, and just the full-on surround sound experience. And like being part of a musical mass like that is just cool. It's awesome. I found out that my mom's dad played guitar and his brothers all played, and I had no idea. And I called him up and I was like, "Hey, I heard you play guitar. Do you still have a guitar?" And he's like, "Yeah, you want to borrow it?" And I was like, "Yeah." Every waking moment was about that, learning how to tune it, listening to it, and carrying this guitar with me everywhere I went. I mean, so much of who I am, when I look back at what made me who I am, was rebelling to something. It was like not being my older brother. I couldn't please my father, so I was gonna just be the complete fucking opposite. I acted out in those kinds of ways. And I saw people being able to express that through music. Finally, I got it into my hands, and that's just kind of, it feels that way. It feels like it comes out of my soul into the instrument. I was talking with somebody the other day, and they're like, what are you, God's gift to guitar? And I was like, no, God's gift to me was the guitar. It allows me to express myself in ways that I can't do with my words. Yeah, so I grew up fairly religious, and when I first started playing, we were considered way back when straight edge before it became this whole other thing that it is now. It was just basically meant you were real punk rock, but you just didn't do alcohol and drugs. You know, I'd been dealing with, all of my feelings, suicidal ideation, my mental illness, my depression, my anxiety. My anxiety has always been like, it's been horrible in my entire life. I mean, to the point where sometimes it just leads me to complete inaction. And I was trying to go to college, so my doctor then prescribed me Klonopin. And I started taking that, and all of a sudden, I went from D's to A's. And I was like, holy shit, this is like how normal people feel. If normal people feel that good, I wonder what like 5 or 6 do. What, you know, and I really didn't think it was that big of a deal at the time, and started having, you know, this rebellious side of me that was just like, when they were telling you don't do drugs because it's, you know, it's not fun, they don't tell you how fun drugs really are. And so I was on this like, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do this now.
Hey, you're not in this. I'm right here. Oh, okay. Are you in it?
You're starting it, dude.
Is it recording? It has been. Should we start it over? Do you want to hit the record button in the back and then hit it again so it starts over?
So now
Bye.
Hey, who is it? What's going on here? Wait, what button am I supposed to hit?
It's in the very back.
Back, like back in my butt?
Yes. Johnny's still alive and I am naked. I screwed up twice. I'm sorry.
And so it turned into, you know, drinking, but this time now I was hiding it from everybody. And when I would play shows, I would, you know, prepare beforehand and then just be like, okay, you know, and made a deal with Darren, it's just 1 shot and 1 beer, and then we perform, and then afterwards we can do whatever. But I had already had whatever beforehand, and I had a bottle in my gig bag. At the time, I thought it made me incredibly creative. At the time, I thought it did. But looking back, I would say the creativity may have been there in the beginning, but the levels where I took my drinking took it to, I'd be functioning at 20%. 20% of my ability. And sometimes I remember looking down and it was just muscle memory keeping me playing. My liver was gone, my kidneys were going, I needed to be on, I was really dead. And that's really what I wanted. I mean, really when it came to it, it was just like, you know what, I don't really see much use for me anymore here. I don't find any joy. So my doctor sent me home with a Librium taper to go detox at home. And I was, it was really just like, you know what, I kind of just want to take all of this and go away. I went home and it was just like, okay, I've got this Librium taper, I'm just going to do this thing. And then Recovery Ways called me and said, hey, we got a bed for you. And we got somebody to sponsorship you, so come down right now. And I was like, awesome. So I went down that day, that evening, and I remember going in there and getting checked in, getting down into the detox center, what they call Denali, and laying on the bed and just laying down and feeling like this is where I'm gonna die. And just being like, okay, it's done. And I felt so much peace. I mean, one of the greatest most peace I'd ever felt in my life at that moment, that it was done. I think this was the moment where I was just desperate enough or whatever to be brave enough to say a real prayer and just be like, take care of my kids. That's all it was take care of my kids. And the experience that I had at that moment was, you can have any experience you want with your kids, but you have to be here. You have to do it and you have to fight. And the feeling was like something I had wanted my entire life. I want to compare it to heroin, but I felt loved and warm and cared about and wrapped. I felt love, somebody actually loved and desired and cared about me. It was a very, very strong and feminine feeling, and was like, you gotta fight. And I knew I had to change everything, and that meant not going back to my old job, not getting back with my old bands, not, changing all my friends. All of that had to change. This was going to be a brand new life and a new chance at something. Make cool ambient noises. Called Oliver up one day and was talking to him, and wanted to do my amends with him, and we thought, hey, you know what, we could start something up. just me and you, let's do it. And I was like, okay, well, it's got to be clean, and it's going to be sober, and let's do something else. And so we started this project called Echo-Filled. Turns out Andres is in recovery as well, and so that's been a really cool, positive thing for this band. And we that's found a bass player, and we're working on making this record now, and we played some shows, and it's been really positive, and it's been really good. And it's nice to do this sober. It feels really good to do this sober. It's real now, and it's a whole new set of feelings. And this new life I've been given a chance at has been awesome. You know, it always feels great when somebody's applauding you or singing along to your songs. That always feels really good. But I don't know if it's this new recovery life or this new life I've been given. It feels so much richer to me now. It really does. And with that, for that, I give it more. I give more of me. I feel like I'm giving more of me into it right now. I feel that I'm able to produce better now because I care more now.
And this is a bit of an abstract one. A chord or a note that represents your recovery.
Ooh, my recovery. So before I used to always really like the A minor 7 chord, which is like this really sad sort of version of an A minor. You can use it in C. Maybe my recovery is just like a solid G, just that chord that's just, and it just let that guitar ring and ring and ring and ring and ring and just sustain. And that's what it really feels like. I could just, there it is.
You're a cop, you know, you're not supposed to ask anybody for help. You're ready to peel the shirt off and the big S is on your chest, and you're supposed to, you know, nothing bothers you. You can't have that question in your mind, what if I don't survive? You have to think, I'm going to make it. Because for that guy or girl who's walking up on that car in the middle of the night, and all you have is those flashing lights behind you, and there's no street lights, and that car is dark and the windows are tinted, you don't know if there's a guy behind that window with a machine gun ready to take you out. You're taught if you trust too much, you could die, come home in the box, and your family gets the American flag, and that's the end of it. It's horrendous. And it's all stress. My town, early on, that was a daily basis. It just took its toll. I began to self-medicate harder and harder as time went along. But I was clearly on my road to alcoholism before any of this even started. Alcoholism unfortunately ran in my family. But for all those years I said, it's never gonna be me. That's not me. So I got through high school, self-medicating with alcohol. That continued on into college. There were jobs that I was attracted to because there were that extra after work stuff was there for me. It was there when I came on. It was almost a rite of passage. You go out, you know, take care of what we termed as the monsters. The sad thing is, you fight monsters for so long, and you become a monster, and I became a monster. I robbed my wife and my kids of their sense of security because I was out in the bar and I was medicating because I was trying to kill all that stuff that was in my head. it got dark to the point where my wife said, you know, I'm divorcing you. I want you to get help, but I'm still divorcing you. All the stuff that I thought I got away with all caught up to me right there that night, because I watched her, I watched my daughter Alexa, I watched my daughter Lauren walk out the door, and that was it. I sat in my truck and I thought about just taking myself out and ending it all and ending the pain. But I looked at the pictures of my daughters that I always keep in my truck, and I said, this is not how the story is going to end. I needed somebody to say, it's okay that you're going through this. And with the help of professionals, it was much easier, because you're not doing it on your own, and you know you're not alone doing it. You don't have to be embarrassed. And I think that's the ego. You know, you're a cop, you're not supposed to ask anybody for help. We see this trauma that the human brain isn't equipped to handle that. You have to get help, and it's okay to get help. I make sure that I take time for me. If you don't have it, you can't give it away. I make sure I work out. I lost 150 pounds. I started doing triathlons, swimming, biking, running. It's letting the steam out, but it's letting the steam out in the right way. I'm dealing with the now. I'm not dealing with the past anymore. And I've forgiven myself. And now I get up and I'm, thanks God. I appreciate that. I'm on the side of the grass, not the roots, you know? And I'm so very happy.
So hello everyone, and welcome to Label for Recovery. It's very exciting for us today. We have a brand new interview, and we're going to be talking about how we can possibly change the community aspects to not only mental health, but specifically recovery. So I'd like to welcome my guest, and please introduce yourself and let us know how you're connected to the recovery community.
Yes, thanks for having me as part of your program. My name is Tom Ross. I'm the Bountiful City Police Chief. I've been the chief now for 14 and a half years, a law enforcement officer in Bountiful for 32 and a half. And I'm also the president of the Utah Chiefs of Police Association. So I've been involved in a lot of these conversations. I spent 4 years as president, was past president last year. I'm back in for 1 year. And yeah, these are conversations and discussions that I've been able to learn a lot from and maybe be educated on what the treatment needs are and the needs of individuals, but also share a law enforcement perspective. And then last, I serve as the board chair of Davis Behavioral Health. And I've been involved on that board for about 6 years now. So I've been able to see that side of substance use and mental health and addiction. And so it's helped in a lot of the decisions that we've made as the Chiefs of Police Association in trying to tie law enforcement response to the needs of our communities.
Cool. Well, great. Well, I'm very thankful for you to take the time to speak with us today. So can you tell me, how do you feel that attitudes have changed to recovery in the past few years?
I think that one area of when you're looking at opioid addiction, and it didn't start out this way, but I think over time it's come around to, I think people saw those that got involved in substance use or abuse as decisions they made that were poor decisions that they're somehow responsible for, even though they may wish they could change it now, they could have at some point in their life. And now we've realized over time that so many people that become addicted do it very innocently. So whether it's through surgeries and pain meds that ultimately lead to other types of substance abuse or use because of an addiction, whether it's mental health issues that certainly can drive people towards addiction and trying to escape maybe or get away from the things that are impacting them every day. Suicide, so many of these things. Substance use is, I think we're seeing it more as a disease, which we should have seen it that way all along. And because of that, we're looking for better ways to treat and maybe not criminalize the same level as we were doing even a few years ago, 10, 15 years ago. I've noticed a big shift in how law enforcement is starting to look at drug addiction and substance use.
For sure, great. And I was also just wondering if you have any maybe success stories from your own perspective that you've maybe been involved with, either personally or peripherally, on how you've been able to positively influence somebody in recovery, or maybe help them on the road.
Yeah, it's interesting because we're going to talk maybe in a few minutes or a little bit about a program that I've been involved in Davis County, but there was a specific individual in a situation that I've been involved in for several years now, probably 5, 6+ years. Her parents are very good friends of mine, and she's a mother with children that have mostly been raised by their grandparents. And she became addicted to drugs at a young age, and they brought her in to me to see me because, as so many, they were hitting a wall. She'd been in treatment before, she'd been in programs, and had come out of a program not too long before this meeting I had with her. And I think you want to believe that they're whole, they're healthy, they're taken care of, and then they slip. And because this was just another time again, and of course, that involves sometimes taking advantage of families and maybe money and certainly childcare here. And they were frustrated, and they brought her in to see me one evening. And since that time, she and I have communicated fairly regularly, probably not monthly, even always monthly, certainly not just weekly. But when she's struggling or having a tough time, she would reach out to me by email or text. She'd reach out to let me know how she's doing. I would reach out to her at times when I hadn't heard things. And what I found in that, which played a role in this program that I was able to help bring about in Davis County, is when a law enforcement officer personally connects with someone who is in fear of what law enforcement means. So she's been arrested before. She certainly doesn't want to have that negative side of her life. But to talk to a police officer in times of need and in times of just letting me know that things are going well, I think that's pretty powerful. And I never really saw that to that kind of level. And here we are 6 years or so later. She loves this program, and she loves the fact that she had a role in me even thinking about how law enforcement needed to evolve. And she's great. She's healthy. She's holding down jobs. She's taking care of her kids. Always worried about sliding back again. And it really opened my eyes to that this is not a one and done or 2 or 3 and done, that in many cases it's over and over and over until it just happens to be right this time.
Oh, for sure. I'm certainly a product of, keep trying and trying and trying. It's the old adage, if at first you don't succeed, try again. And a lot of people don't get those additional chances. And it's very important for people like yourself to be a piece of everybody's recovery, and to support them in some ways. And a lot of people that are out there in the community doing things like this will never know how important they are specifically to maybe somebody's story, but everyone's there, and it's important to always be open to anybody that needs help. So moving on to that, because I was always wondering how can we help communicate with the youth of today about the dangers and difficulties that substances can evolve into. It's difficult because, again, when you're young, the party scene, it's always, drugs and alcohol are going to be there, and how can we help educate and help the youth of today be aware, the path that could lead to?
It's a challenge. You know, I've talked to many families over 32 years that have sometimes ended in tragic situations where death's been involved. And of course, you're asking yourself, what could we have done differently? And, you know, what did we miss? And when it comes to substance use, especially, I think the part that I've kind of found over time is that just being straightforward and frank and kind of even blunt at times, we're all looking to say something different that means something more. And maybe I can give an example, because I wasn't thinking about substance use at all when this happened, but that's exactly what we're talking about. And a young woman, she's probably in her mid-20s at the time, walked up to me in a store in Bountiful, and she said, "You probably don't remember me, but you responded. I was a runaway, and you responded when I was a teenager, and you said something to me that changed my life. And I always intended," this was some 10 years earlier, "I always intended on coming in and thanking you, and I just never got around to it. And I saw you in the store, and I wanted to say something." And she said, "Do you remember," she was telling me what happened as the runaway. She said, "Do you remember what you said?" And I said, "Yes." And I never said it again to anyone else after, because I was worried that she would take it out of context and use it against me or a police officer role. But what happened is she had family had a recent divorce, stepdad. He wasn't abusing her verbally or physically in any way, but she did not want him in her life. And she was running away. And I picked her up. She'd run away a few times before. I picked her up. I'm taking her back to the house. And she says, "You can pick me up and I will run away again. And you can take me home and I will run away again. And that's what I'm going to keep doing." And I pulled up in front of the house. I turned around to her and I said, "Then keep running, because you're not going to graduate high school. So keep running. And the guys that you've been hanging out with and the alcohol you're drinking, keep running, because you're going to consume more alcohol. You're going to start taking drugs, because that's exactly what this environment is going to bring you into. You're going to end up pregnant, but keep running. And you're going to end up not having a job that pays any money. You're going to struggle month to month, but keep running until someday you're so tired of running that you stop. And I just hope that you are not so far down a path of damage to family and friends and loved ones and yourself that you can't find a way back." So I left her there. I wasn't aware that she said, "I never ran away again." She said, "In fact, I wanted you to know I graduated high school. I went to college. I've got a degree. I have a good job." I think she has 2 children at the time, married. "And you played a role in that, because I just happened to say something to her that I was scared about. I was afraid that she would run away again after I said it, and thought, man, that was probably not smart. And she gets picked up again, or she tells her parents, the police officer told me to run away."
Yeah.
And I never used it again with anybody, although now I wished I had. But that's an example of, I think with young kids, sometimes we have to be willing to risk a little bit, or maybe a lot. We have to be looking to say something that they haven't just heard of from everybody else. And all I did was lay out a path that a police officer sees over time. I've seen families, I've seen individuals go through this, and their lives deteriorate until one day they're done. And we hope that that isn't death. And so that connected with her. And I hope I've had other conversations and said other things to individuals over my career, and I believe at times I have, but we just have to keep trying.
Oh, for sure. And I'm sure you've had an amazing impact on many people's lives in a positive sense that you'll never know, but that's the wonderful thing. So, but moving on from that, so can you tell us about any of the community resources, maybe, because we all know about USARA because they're supporting this event. But if there's any community resources that you know of that somebody could maybe reach out to if they're struggling?
Yes, there's a program we started. So for those in Davis County, and we started a program last December that is what I call a true law enforcement diversion for someone with substance use or mental health problems. So if you think about, and I started it kind of for selfish reasons. I've felt for many years that law enforcement is in a position they can't win when it comes to substance use and mental health. People that are struggling don't want to see us because they're afraid we're going to arrest them. Families don't call us unless it's extreme because they're afraid we're going to arrest their loved one. And they're always struggling between, is someone going to die? Then I call the police. Or am I going to get them, make the hole deeper for them to try to climb out of because they're going to have criminal consequences? Or we're going to take them to a hospital that's going to tack on charges and costs that they can't afford. So in looking at that and thinking about there's got to be a better place, I felt that if law enforcement could be the one extending the hand to help, no charge, not a citation issued, not a court process that somebody has to go through. And if all you have to commit to me is that you will go to a receiving center and start treatment, and you will continue in treatment until you're either cured or whatever that means, or you stay in treatment while you find a better path. And so that society isn't paying a price for maybe your criminal conduct if you're committing thefts or stealing or using drugs in the community, then if you refuse to even try, then the criminal charges will be filed at a later date. But the benefit is that we take you off the street right now voluntarily, that you have to agree to do this. We drive you to the facility, we drop you off. We don't send a police report anywhere. We do a report, it stays in the department. And you have the best opportunity for treatment that you have probably ever had on an initial contact. You have a peer person there assigned to you. You have a mental health therapist, a substance use therapist or provider, treatment person there. You have a nurse there. And I'll tell you, the 350 or so roughly that we've brought into this facility so far, it's been a game changer. Number one, they're emotional towards law enforcement. The very people they fear the most, and that goes back to the comment I was making, that to have someone in uniform be the one to help you, I think has more impact than most anyone else helping you. And they're saying, I can't believe the police officer was the one that brought me here. You're not being arrested. You're not going to lose your job. You're not going to lose your housing. You're not having to tell family or anyone. In fact, if you don't have to tell anybody anything. And the police officer drops you off and we leave within 6 minutes. I felt all along that this would be the better way to help people committing crimes, minor crimes, misdemeanor crimes, drug use crimes. And this is the model, because we don't put you in the criminal justice system. We treat you. And we do it at a time when you are most motivated. It's probably a good way, because what was law enforcement doing otherwise? We take you to jail and book you, or we take you to a hospital, or almost as bad, we leave you on the street and say, don't do this, and knowing that you're probably going to continue. It's having a phenomenal early results. People are staying in treatment. We've only had 4 walk away from this facility. That's amazing.
Yep.
They're staying in treatment 60 days later. And it's one of the best programs I've ever been involved in my 32-year career. And it wasn't, I was one voice helping bring it forward. There were others, Davis Behavioral Health. But for anyone in Davis County, if you've been struggling, mental health or drug addiction, substance use, come to this facility, because it is changing people's lives. We hope the long-term results are as positive as the short-term results are right now.
Wonderful. What's the program called?
It's Davis County Receiving Center. And we're looking right now, we're purchasing a permanent building. We've been given a building at the jail from the sheriff he leased it to us for $1. And we turned it into a receiving center. And our long-term goal, not even long-term, hopefully shorter term, is that anybody can walk into this facility anytime. But I'm telling you, I've had individuals call police officers up that took them there at one point, and they're struggling. They sense it's a mental health condition. They sense they're starting to, lose their path, and they call them up and say, hey, can you take me to that place? That's huge. and
sure.
we're driving them there. So it's a pilot program that the state is very interested in. The state's helping fund, and there's 5 other counties that are now looking to do a similar program. And that's something that I think is a game changer.
Certainly sounds like it. And then, so again, on that note about helping people, so if there was one thing that you could say to somebody that is struggling and looking to find a way out, what would that be?
You know, I've thought a lot about that because obviously I feel like the moment has to kind of help tell me what I need to say, or probably anybody. But I will say this, that it seems to me as I'm talking with folks that are struggling, I want them to know that although there are many things that have played in your life that you probably blame to some extent or can legitimately blame for getting you into this spot, you're the only one that can get yourself out. No matter how you feel about family, friends, race, you know, everything in life that's been unfair or has stamped you down or pushed you down or squashed you, the only person that can change the path is you. And the sooner that you're able to do it and wrap yourself around it, the better the chances are for, you know, not the damage not being as severe, or maybe being able to recover, certainly, hopefully not losing your life. But you are going to have to accept at some point that you are the only one that can change it. If you look for others to fix it or to improve it or to even rightfully make it better, if they don't perform, you lose. And I think just having those kinds of conversations with people that are good people that have just found themselves in the wrong place or have gone down a path that I could have gone down. You could have, you talk about what you've been down. I know that could have been me. We've dealt with it in my family. I know that I could have made a different choice. I could have had a different DNA. I could have had a different upbringing. I could have had all these things, and I would be sitting in the same place that they are. And that's always been in my mind as I've talked to people from the criminal justice or law enforcement, is that could have been me, that could have been me. And I think that just allowed me to maybe speak in a different way without judgment, and hopefully get them to see that you have to take this bull by the horns and you have to be able to move it. And if I can help you do that, or this program can help you do that, wonderful. But you're going to have to be the one to decide, I'm going to do it. There's enough motivation here.
Yeah, and it's up to you to make that decision and to take the first step forward. But once you do that, there are many people out there, friends, family, community, resources that will help you keep taking the steps. Because it is a hardcore thing to do, but there's always help. So,
and I'm going to accept that you're not likely going to do it your first time or your third time or your fifth time or your seventh time. I accept that. And I think many people do now, even though we still struggle with how do we make it happen. I think there's more acceptance. So you're not alone out there, and you're not off in a space that we're all judging you, saying, why can't you just get it together? I think that when that moment is right, you seize it, and you'll be blessed, and you'll be grateful that you did it. Until then, you have to keep trying.
For sure. Well, thank you very much for taking the time to chat to us today. It's been very eye-opening for myself, and I hope there's a lot of good content in there for our watchers and our listeners that can reach out and always know that you'll be there to help them along. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you for having me as part of your program. And again, for anyone that has questions or wants to know more about what we're doing, reach out, and I'll try to steer them in the right direction or give whatever help I can. Cool. So thank you.
Happy days. Thank you.
Happiness is like a bird with 20 wings. Try to catch him as he flies. Happiness is like a bird that only sings when his head is in the skies. You can try to make him walk beside you. You can say the door is open wide. If you grab at him, woe betide you. I know because I've tried.
Hey, how's it going? Back. Hello. Hi. Yeah, how are you? No, I'm good. How was work? I told you it'd be fine. I know. What are you doing? Do you want to... You just got home. Okay. Yeah, it's fine. Tell me the Richie story. I mean, I'm a really good friend. Is Cole like
Justin, how are you?
Just those, please.
21.90, please.
Love when everybody is like.
Thanks, bye.
What are you doing? Do you want to... I was trying to have a drink? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, mate. It's so fine. Don't worry about it. No, don't be silly. Don't be silly about it. just have a glass of wine. I'll probably just have a glass of wine and then I'll go to bed. Yeah.
They just don't, though, you know, guys. Like, I just feel like... Sorry.
Hi.
I'm just such a good friend.
Yeah, you didn't call me? You didn't call me, like, 3 days ago. And you didn't... We're sorry.
Especially you. And I feel like it's just really special.
Like a butterfly upon an April morning, very quickly taking fright. Happiness is come and gone.
I know that we haven't known each other that long, but I really wanted to tell you that I just, like, really respect you.
I will follow him across the meadow. I will follow him across the hill. And if I can catch him, I will try to bring why, yes.
It's like, makes people feel good. Everybody feels good.
I missed you.
You're definitely
Feels like you're here.
It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Yeah, I got drunk on my own last night. I don't know, I just like got through a whole bottle of wine. And then I don't even remember going to bed.
I will follow him across the meadow. I will follow him across the hill. And if I can catch him, I will try to bring him, why yes, happiness. If I can catch him, I will try to bring you all and happiness.
So welcome everyone, welcome to Label Fest for Recovery. I'm very happy to be joined here with Lisa Walker from USARA. Thank you very much for joining and chatting to me about recovery.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Brian. I appreciate it.
Cool. So can you tell the viewers anything about yourself and why you're interested to take part in this?
Yes, absolutely. So my name is Lisa Walker. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and I work here at a local nonprofit in Salt Lake City called Utah Support Advocates for Recovery Awareness. I am a person in long-term recovery, and I am passionate about being loud about my recovery so I can help other people know that it is here and possible, and that people can connect and to get help.
I love the term being loud about your recovery.
Yeah.
I've never heard that before, but I am certainly loud about my recovery as well.
Yeah.
I certainly wear it on my sleeve and on my t-shirts and on my hats and everything. So, but welcome. So, can you tell me how your attitude to recovery has changed over the years?
Sure. I think that in the beginning, I was just so afraid and steadfast, and so I found my people to look up to, and I just sort of did whatever that they were doing. And then through that, I was able to really build a foundation for myself in my own life, and that was in being a mom and a wife and becoming a student and going to school. And so now I definitely have a broader perception of what is available for people, women, mothers like me when I was in the position that I was in when I was seeking help. And it's just nice to know that there are just so many broad resources for people to tap in and to get help. And I now know that there's this huge community of recovery here in Salt Lake City, just waiting to reach out and to help people. And I don't know that people always know that. So it's changed in the fact that I know that I wasn't a bad person, you know, I just got lost along the way on my journey. And it actually is an asset in my life now that that was a path that I had taken in my 20s. So.
And I myself, I'm a person in long-term recovery as well. And when I started my journey back in the days, yes, there were just the standard support groups that you would automatically think of to go. But I'm sure back then there was a wealth and breadth of other options, but we just didn't know about it. You know, we just didn't know about the open doors that were there for us. So it seemed a lot more difficult back in then. So I personally would love it in this day and age when everyone can be so open. You know, you can chat on social media, you can just ask for help, and people are going to come running, and there's always someone with an outstretched hand to show you the way. So
truly, so many people, yeah, from all walks of life, yeah,
definitely. And on that standpoint, do you have a success story about recovery, either personal or peripheral, or someone that you've maybe helped along the way, or watched from afar, or just someone that has made giant leaps?
Sure. I mean, I think that I have so many success stories, and I think that my success has largely been due to helping others. And so I think I have seen so many women and that were younger than me. I've seen them kind of go back to school and get an education, and that they're now, you know, getting married and starting families, and they're getting to start like sober families, which I think is amazing. And so I just continue to see that. And I think that that's amazing. I think that that's where the change and like that generational change like can happen. And so, you know.
Yeah, and it's great to be able to hear about the family structure changing, so that you can have good role models. And that brings me on to my next question. So one of the films that we're playing is about, it's called Girls Who Drink, and it's about mismanagement of your younger days, you know, when it's all about partying and how that can get out of control. And, you know, it can sort of send you down the wrong path. So do you have any advice, you know, that you could maybe give to any of the young viewers that are maybe struggling or have an interest to see what maybe their next step would be?
Oh man. Yeah. I mean, I think that I just wish I would have known that, that there was other options. I guess what I would want them to know is that there isn't anything, you know, that we've done that can't be forgiven. And I think that people need to know that like shame really has been the biggest driving factor in me not getting help until I did. So I think I would say to them is just find other people to talk to, you know, and I think that, you know, as parents, we should talk to our kids about any and everything. And, you know, maybe not the style that I was grown up in, which was like, just say no, you know? And so I think that talking about it is really the biggest thing.
For sure. And there are plenty of resources that are out there. You know, you can even just go online, do a Google search or a Bing search if you're not into Google. And you always find, you know, talking points because it is difficult to see a change in your child, you know, from the little cherub that you raised. And then you can have sort of rose tinted glasses thinking, oh, not my child, I'll believe what they're saying. But it's always good just to have those conversations from a very early age. You know, like my son is 10 years old, and I've been talking to him about, you know, addiction and depression and mental health as a whole since he was born. One, so that he could understand better how to deal with a father, you know, with mental health issues, and that it's not a scary thing. And then also how he can maybe put steps into his own life so that he can maybe deal with it better if he does end up having to deal with it as he grows up. So So on that standpoint, can you tell me about any community resources that are available that that people can reach out to?
Yeah, absolutely. I think first of all, reaching out to us here at USARA, we hold several different support groups so that you do have a variety of people to meet and communities to get engaged in. So definitely reaching out to us. I think it can often depend, the difference between help or not is whether people are funded or if they have insurance or if they have Medicaid or private insurance. So I think always reaching out to your insurance to see what is available. People kind of miss that step, but when people come, call here, that's definitely something that we can help them with. For me, it's just in the beginning, there was no bad meeting, right? And we have a plethora of meetings here and available in our valley. I think calling USARA is a great place to start, but online there are so many Facebook groups, so I think that that's another place to go. And then just our local authority here, or Valley Behavioral Health. I think that there's resources to reach out to, and people that want to, if that doesn't work, they can at least send you to the next one, or even as something as simple as calling 211. If you get the right person, you can get a lot of resources through that as well. So.
Oh, definitely. And everything's there. Everything's there at the touch of a button. You don't even have to talk to people on the phone. You can text.
Yeah.
And it's like technology is really catching up and really helping us that way. Because I know back in my day, there was no way that I was going to talk to somebody on the phone.
Right.
I still hardly talk to anyone on the phone now, but it's great to be able to just text people.
It so is. Like, I sought out recovery. I went to the ER, and it was like by happenstance that they told me about the VOA detox, and then that was my start to recovery. It shouldn't be that, that difficult. So, yeah.
For sure. And as I say, hopefully labeled will become null and void in the future, because really we exist to end the stigma in recovery and mental health. And we are making leaps and bounds, every day, every week, people are being open about it, and there is no shame. And hopefully that'll help people, find the right path for them.
Yeah.
So on that standpoint, if there was just one thing that you could say to somebody that was maybe struggling, what would that be? That
there's hope, that they matter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that is the truth, 100% truth. And as I say, we just need to break down that barrier, and to be able to ask, the two hardest questions in the world is, I don't know and I need help.
Right.
And if you can just ask those questions, there will always be an answer on the end. So.
Yeah. Things start to open up for sure. Yeah. So.
Well, thank you very much for joining us. And again, all the help that you could ever dream of is at USARA. And,
we're going to at least connect you to a resource.
Indeed. Cool.
I should say that we provide peer support here. And what I find is that the peers, the people that are here in earlier on recovery, they're the ones that have the pulse on everything that's new happening, and whether that's a new sober living or some new funding that's become available. And I think that that's just such a beautiful thing about peer support. So.
Yeah, for sure. It's all about the community. And
if
you can find your own group, it's back to the old dinosaur thing. If you stay in the middle of the group, they can't pick you off, and that's what it's all about. So
sure.
Again, thank you very much for joining us, and back to the films. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Brian.
People do get clean. People do get sober. It does work. One of the things they say at the end of a 12-step meeting is, it works if you work it, you're worth it. There's a lot of ways, there's a lot of paths to recovery. Nobody could have stopped me. I chose to stop. I'm still here. My name is Ben Kimmel, and I'm 45 years old, and I'll be sober 27 years on April 1st.
My name is Kyle Boomhauer, and I am 27 years old, and I've been sober for 6.5 years. It'll be 7 in June.
My name is Michael Petrillo. I'm 33 years old, and I've been clean and in recovery now for 10.5 years.
My name's Jesse. I'm 29 years old, and I've been sober for a little over 3 years now.
I started my experience with substance abuse at 14 when I started drinking for the first time.
I started using drugs at 12, smoking pot and drinking alcohol.
I picked up crack and heroin somewhere around the age of 15.
I had been dealing internally with a lot of fear and a lot of anxiety, some depression.
I more did it just to get outside myself. It made me feel like I fit in better with people.
I dealt with depression and wanting to die for a long time.
I was very insecure with myself, and I had a lot of anxiety growing up, social anxiety, and I never felt like I had a purpose in my life.
Tremendous amount of anger and rage, and I didn't know how to cope with any of these emotions.
At 19 years old, I started using painkillers, Oxycontin, Percocet, Xanax, different variety of prescription drugs, which eventually led me to heroin and methadone. And I found myself in a very, very dark place by the time I was 20 years old.
So it was from alcohol to marijuana, cocaine to pills, and then ultimately to heroin. The reason that I would jump from one to the next was because at some point, each of those substances would stop working.
When you're first getting started in addiction, you make so many mistakes that eventually you wind up just hiding from all those mistakes by continuing your habit of addiction. And then one day you'll wake up and realize that you've been hiding for so long that you essentially lost yourself and lost touch with reality.
I was thrown out of my first junior high, I think my second time in 9th grade. And then I went to a special school for kids with special needs. And I was thrown from that.
I had 2 brief experiences with incarceration, had failed out of 2 state colleges in New Jersey, one of them twice, both of which I had full academic scholarships to. I got kicked out of another honors college. I had destroyed every meaningful relationship I had in my life. Kicked out of my house on several occasions, bounced in and out of rehabs, halfway houses, transitional living facilities, all sorts of programs because I just couldn't stay sober. I kept getting high. So 20 years old, I have absolutely nothing.
There was no longer denying that I was a drug addict at that time in my life and that I really, really needed help, but I didn't have the ability at that time to ask for help.
None of those external consequences, the jail, the arrests, the getting kicked out of my house, none of that ever got me sober. So the way that I coped with anything that I was dealing with was I would get high. So the first thing I did when I got out of jail was I got high. The first thing I did when I got kicked out of my house was I got high, because I didn't know how to deal with it otherwise.
I knew I had a problem, I knew I needed to do something different, and I knew eventually I was gonna die if I didn't get clean.
There were plenty of events along the course that really made me consider, this is not the right lifestyle for me. I know how terrible things are going. You think it would have been winding up homeless, you think it would have been winding up with no family in your life, no friends in your life, but the thing that really did it for me was being in jail and not being home for Christmas.
2 weeks before Christmas, I got a call that my father had a heart attack. I would have taken jail, I would have taken the sentence they gave me, I would have found out, I would have taken a new charge, I would have taken anything, just don't take my father from me. And I think that's when I started to open my eyes, when I realized that life isn't really guaranteed and I was gonna lose even more.
My last high was the night of June 9th of 2011. It was a half cc shot of vodka that I shot into my vein. And I was praying that God would just send a tractor trailer to take me out. But instead what I got was I got a text message from my father, and it said something along the lines of, "Kyle, I know things are really difficult for you right now and that everything with the family is a mess. But we want you to know that we're proud of you and everything that you're trying to do." It finally occurred to me that when I drink and when I get high, I destroy everything and everyone around me.
I would love to tell you that I got it right away. It wasn't that way. I did relapse. I had about a year clean, and then the next thing I know, I was in a minivan filled with stolen equipment, driving through East New York, Brooklyn with the nickel-plated 357 underneath my seat.
I might make it a couple months and staying clean, and then the one weekend would come where I let my guard down. I would get a craving and say, you know what, let me just do it for the weekend and I'll pick up where I left off on Monday. And by Monday, it was too late. Monday I was off and running again.
I freaked out. I gave in. And I went back to my default settings of what I could understand.
The addiction that led me to the drugs is the same addiction that will lead me back to the drugs if I don't start to address the deeper issues.
You're not going to be able to do anything about it until you recognize that that problem's there in the first place.
I think the hardest part for any addict with being sober is just the general cravings that come throughout the day. You know, that minute's gonna come when you're really craving the idea of getting high, and the battle to get through that, even if it's only lasting for 5 to 10 minutes, you know, those 5 to 10 minutes can sometimes feel like hours.
I get urges, I get ideas. I think those are natural. They call this a disease, and they say your disease talks to you.
Because addiction and alcoholism are fundamentally a psychological or a mental disorder, my thinking is not normal. So at some point, the thought will always enter my mind, Kyle, like, why don't you just have one?
Recovery is not easy. It goes against the grain of the way that I lived my life for so many years. So I needed to relearn how to live life and really change my behaviors and, you know, through the help of others, change the way that I was thinking.
I essentially told myself, like, you're not an addict anymore. Like, stop talking to people about drugs, stop telling stories about how you got high, stop telling people stupid stuff that you got arrested for. People say you have to do it for yourself, and you genuinely do. That's what changed me, and that's what worked.
I went to a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I basically threw myself into this program. The most effective way for you to change is to go through the 12 steps, because the 12 steps will bring you to a power greater than yourself that will give you the ability to choose. And that's an ability I hadn't had. I couldn't choose, I had no choice.
I don't have a hard time staying clean anymore. The obsession to use drugs was lifted from me probably when I had about 60 to 90 days clean.
So it's not like it's not possible. It's probably the hardest thing you'll ever have to do if you're a drug addict, but the life that you're blessed with when you finally get sober makes whatever sacrifices you have to make entirely worth it.
That's where the Narcotics Anonymous and the Alcoholics Anonymous family kind of comes into play. There are so many programs out there that have so many people in there that are willing to help you, that essentially that can become your family.
My mother and father, had they been more educated about the disease of addiction or alcoholism, had they been more informed about how I felt, maybe they could have helped me, maybe they could have, what I would do, and be more involved.
One of the biggest things is just still the stigma associated with drug addiction and alcoholism. And unfortunately, this stigma a lot of the time prevents people from recognizing that, one, I have a problem, and that, two, that I can do something about it.
A lot of people are in denial or don't understand, they're not informed.
So it's really important to go out into the community and talk about it. And so that's what a lot of us are starting to do.
Look, we need to learn to accept it, you know, as part of our society in order for people to feel more comfortable about opening up, whether it's to a teacher, a counselor, a friend, a parent.
We just need help. We're not bad people. You know, the crimes that are being committed due to addiction are not because we want to go out and we want to steal stuff. It's not because we want to hurt other people. It's really because we just want to not feel the way we're feeling. All that I can ask is that you just give them one more chance, because that one more chance might save their life.
You get sober, and when you realize how selfishly you've been acting, it kind of really inspires you and motivates you to just not be that same person. Like, when I got sober, I made a very, very clear decision, like, I am willing to do anything in the world to never be that person again.
The more I talk about it and the more I remember it, the more it makes me realize how great I'm doing now, all the positive things that can come from life, and all the great things that can be achieved from just accepting who you are and being determined to do better in your life.
I write a lot. And one of the things I write about is a 13-year-old me. And if I could tell him now, anything now, I don't believe it. You all good, you all worth it, you're so much better than you give yourself credit for. People do like you, stay out of your own head. Don't give in, kid.